Okay, in this tutorial, I'm going to talk about a helpful expression for animations like pendulum animations, which is what I'm showing here. If you're trying to do like a Ferris wheel or the crank arm on a bicycle, for instance, where you want something to stay flat while it's rotating, this is going to be pretty straightforward and hopefully it'll be a quick tutorial. In terms of like creating the animation from scratch, I have other videos on that, so you can kind of go back and review those if you need a recap on that. So to kind of show what we're going to do here, so I have the stick animation right here, and then I have this little silly tennis ball thing for the main pendulum. So normally what you would do is, again, this is the ball right here, this is the stick. The stick has the animation on it. You can see the rotation uh, parameter has keyframes on it right there with the animation. I have the anchor point of the stick up here so that when it rotates around that anchor point. So it's a really simple animation right there. When you're doing pendulum animations, make sure that you have like an ease in, ease out for it. Otherwise, it'll look really robotic and weird. So I kind of used the graph editor and used ease in, ease out with this and dragging the handles to give the animation a little bit more of it kind of where it slows down at the two extremes and then gains maximum velocity as it kind of reaches the center. So normally you have the ball, and we're going to parent it just by looking over here for this pick whip and then clicking on that and then dragging it onto the stick right there. And when I do that, you can see that that might be good for what you're trying to do, but you can see that the face is kind of staying. So when it rotates over here, they're facing sideways. When they're over here, they're facing straight up. So this expression is to make it so that they're facing straight up as the whole animation happens instead of kind of flipping like that. So the expression is going to be pretty straightforward here. So before we start on this, though, we're going to need to have a null in here. And if you don't create the null, what will happen? So I have this other comp right here where I did the animation and then on purpose didn't include a null here. And if you don't include a null, you can see there might be some attachment issues right here as we do this expression right here. So that's just kind of to say, don't overlook that step we're about to do here. So I have this third comp set up that is just the stick with the animation and nothing's parented yet. So the first step that I want to do is I'm going to create a null. So I'm going to go layer, new, and then null object right here. It's going to show up right here. If you're unfamiliar with what a null is, it looks like this in After Effects, and it's essentially something that shows up in your preview, but it's not going to show up in your render. And it's really useful for a lot of things. You can have your animation on the null, and I usually use it to kind of simplify really complicated compositions, but it's also helpful here for this particular animation. So I have the null right here. Remember, if you want to rename it, you can just press return and name it what you want. I'm just going to leave it as null here though. And I have snapping turned on up here. So if I hold it, you can see I get these smart guides right here as I'm kind of trying to line it up with different things right there. So I'm just lining it up with the center edge of the pendulum stick right there. Doesn't need to be perfect, just but you want it really close. And so again, snapping is a way to kind of get that. Also, if you don't have this turned on, if you hold control, you can also snap. So if you like to not have those turned on, you can leave them off and then hold control on your keyboard to snap things. So next up, I'm going to take my ball right here. And you can see it's really important that the anchor point of the ball is in the correct place right here. So just make sure that it's the pan behind anchor point tool, or you can press Y. Just make sure that the anchor point isn't like way over there or something like that. So again, making sure with snapping and that button right there, that we're going to try to snap it to the center of the ball. I can also press V, move the ball over here, and kind of do that without any of the snapping distractions that are too many snapping distractions. So there we go. It's kind of centered on the image, and then I can bring it right there. Okay. And so let's see here. So now we're going to do some parenting and then do the expression right here. So first, let's do some parenting right here. So we have the character, we have the null, we have the stick. So I'm going to take the character. I'm going to just parent their overall position and everything to the null right here. So it's just the pick whip right here. down to the null. Then with a null, I'm going to do a similar thing where I click the pick whip on the null and drag that onto the stick. And so now we're going to have that same animation we had before where the character is straight up here, but rotating to the side there. So now we're ready to do the expression here. So I'm going to click this button right here to expand out the transform of the ball character. Same thing for the stick right here. And so normally when you're doing the pick whip, you can just kind of pick whip either the whole thing or one of these parameters and parent one of those parameters to another object. And what we're going to do is we're going to use an expression. So I'm going to hold on under the ball character, under rotation. I'm going to click option there. And then we can see that. So again, just to kind of show that one more time, is you can, under the ball character right here, I'm holding option. If you're on a PC, it'll be alt and clicking the stopwatch next to its rotation right there. This will come up. And so a lot of times you can write in your own expression, and we'll kind of get to that. But you can see this little pick whip appeared under rotation that was not there before. And so this is called an expression pick whip, and we are going to use that. And so you're going to click on the pick whip and do not drag it onto stick, but instead drag it onto rotation of the stick right there. So I'm just clicking on that, dragging it down to rotation, and you can see that the expression here changed, which is good. So you want it to look something like that. And then we're going to add to it. So I'm not going to add any space bars, any periods or anything like that, or brackets in between. And I'm just going to leave it as it is and press star and then -1 right there. So star, if you can't find it on your keyboard, is shift and then 8 if you're on a Mac here, and then -1. And then if you just click out of here, it should start to work for you right here. And so right now you can see that the character, their face is not rotating as the animation happens right here. And since we use the null right here, something that's really helpful, remember we attached the ball to the null and the null to the stick, is now I can just, with the null, I can either tap R or click on the transform button and then just go down to rotation of the null, reposition it here. There's no animation on that rotation. So now I can just kind of adjust it right here to my liking. So now that I just kind of rotated the null by 5 degrees, and my cache is getting full here, so it's having trouble rendering it. Let's try that again. Here we go. You can see that the animation is, the ball is kind of staying straight up, whereas before it was kind of doing this kind of thing where it was going to the side like that.